Hello everyone, welcome back to another Keylink video. I'm Michael, I am a marketing executive here at Keylink. A couple of weeks ago I had the pleasure and the privilege of talking to Lily from Trupig Vegan. And in case you don't know them, they are a vegan chocolate company based in Kelham Island, an ex-industrial estate in the heart of Sheffield. We also wrote a blog about our talk, so you can find that, the link will be in the description below. But I'll leave you with the interview following now. Lily, how did Trupig start, and could you tell us a bit of the background in how, the story of Trupig really?
Yeah. I mean, so we did start as Truffle Pig in 2016. It was Christmas time. I like to say I enjoy making presents for people at Christmas, but it's actually because I was quite cheap and skint. So I was making truffles for family and friends, and the place I was working at the time is up by the Harley. It was a cafe called Roco. I started getting to use their kitchens a little bit, experimenting, and then I started helping the chef because I was just working as a barista. And so I just used the kitchen, started making truffles, gave them as presents to friends and stuff. And then literally, I think it was by the March time, I'd quit my job. So I was like, do you know what? There's a market here, because at that time you couldn't get vegan chocolate in the supermarket, especially you couldn't get handmade stuff. So it kind of snowballed pretty quickly. And then I think 2 years later, we got the unit. It was COVID. So it got pretty big as for everyone, It's the business kind of grew really organically on Instagram. So we were really lucky to build a community from that. And then my husband, who had been a civil servant for 20 years, sacked it in, came on board, and then it's just two of us now. So.
How was the leap for you to go from, being employed and, as you said, your husband, and then to kind of sack all that off and then go straight into your own business?
I mean, for me, easy, because I'm a hustler. I've never had a full 9 to 5 in my life. So I've always I've worked he's laughing at me. I've worked as a musician, when I lived in London, because that's what I did at uni. So I taught in prisons, taught in young offenders, councils, putting bands together, with Billy Bragg's jail guitar doors. And then just doing gigs on the side and stuff. So I'd always had 3 or 4 jobs at once. Mm-hmm. So me being able to do this on the side was pretty easy. And then just as it started bringing in enough to, help pay the bills, I was like, actually, I can put more into this. So I play roller derby. And that was where our first community was, because I'd have stalls at games and things. And a lot of people in roller derby are vegan anyway. So it had a ready-made market, as it were, and everyone's really supportive. So that's kind of what grew it and got the word out in the first place, because we'd go and play different teams, and then they'd hear about it and they'd put in orders and stuff, and I'd bring little truffles to games. For Ian, it was way harder because he had a real job with a pension and stability, and he'd done it for 20 years since he was 17. So that was a difficult process, but I'm sure he doesn't mind me explaining, but he'd been off with anxiety and depression for about 18 months. And it was a really long road to get any redundancy and be able to get what he was owed. So we didn't really know what we were doing at that time. And it was really it was a helpful outlet to be able to, help pack the orders and have our own space. But we were in a tiny little house. We were using our spare room to pack the orders. But it was only him being able to help. And then lockdown, actually, that we were like, do you know what, we can get this out of our spare room and get a unit. And obviously, because of lockdown, the rents were pretty cheap. So we got a good deal here. We signed a 3-year lease. We're just coming to the end of that now, actually. We just, went for it.
Seeing someone set up their own business from just it being selling to your roller derby mates to now it being as big as it is, it's proper exciting. But you're saying obviously you and the roller derby team, a lot of them are vegetarian and vegan and stuff. Are you comfortable talking about your background with veganism and what kind of swayed you that way?
Yeah, I mean, it was Ian, to be honest. He goes to this horror film festival in Sheffield every year called Celluloid Screams. And there was a short one year, and it was just treating humans as they would treat animals. And he came back and he was like, I think we should try being vegan. And I had been veggie since I was about 7 or 8, just because I wanted to be Lisa Simpson when I was little. And my parents were super supportive of that. I'd tried being vegan at uni, but even then it was probably difficult because there was just sneaky milk and eggs and everything.
Yeah.
But by the time when we started, like Ian will tell you, like I once tried to boil a carrot and fob it off as a hot dog. Like the times were hard, like 7-8 years ago. Whereas like now it's so easy. But I would say like the hardest thing at first was cheese. There was no good cheese. But I mean, like now for people to do it, it's so easy, and I think it's way more accessible. The thing where it can be expensive, as with anything, is when you start buying branded stuff, you know, and replacements and things, but they're expensive. Their counterparts are expensive anyway. So, you know, you can do it affordably, but I recognize that being vegan is a privilege because not everyone can, you know, have the accessibility to the products and the means to do it.
What's your kind of response like to sort of, because you do get some people that are like, vegan's not as good as a meat or or dairy alternative. When you've kind of give people vegan chocolates, have you got a positive response from people that consume dairy and meat and stuff?
Yeah, like overwhelmingly so. And anyone that does vegan chocolate will probably tell you the same. But like, you know, it started off that we would sell to people that wanted, a lot of our market is they just want handmade stuff. And then you go, oh, and it's vegan. So that was like the pause. And then you say, rather than people buying it because it's vegan, which is definitely what we have now. But at the beginning, it was because it was handmade, locally produced, ethical, made by someone you know. And then they're like, oh, you wouldn't be able to tell it's, you know, it's vegan. Like with the meat substitutes and everything, I'd say, of course, they're going to be the same, but it's the reasons why you're doing, you know, that ethical, environmental. So it's that you're willing to, you know, give something up. It's a small, you know, sacrifice, isn't it? For the sacrifice that, you know, agriculture and animals are giving.
It's clear even just in this conversation, but you're passionate about the animal welfare, the environment and all that kind of stuff. I noticed that you do a lot of work with charities, partnerships and fundraisers and all that kind of stuff. And in combination with your Instagram account, you're saying you're building like a community that way. How have you been able to create such a positive community around these principles in combination with tasty vegan treats?
I mean, because like veganism can be quite a negative place, but fortunately, like chocolate's good. People like it. It's fun. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a good starting point. People aren't going to be mad about talking about chocolate. You know, it's like it sells itself in a way. Like you can put up a cool photo. Whereas like when you're trying to sell animal welfare and stuff, it's harder to make that sexy. Do you know what I mean? Like chocolate is, you know, it's fun and stuff. So we've like created this community just because from people that enjoyed seeing our posts and I think the biggest thing has always been like for us authenticity. Like it's really obvious when a company starts selling vegan products and they've got absolutely no like hat in the game, and which is great. It's growing veganism and it's growing the like awareness of it. But because the community is built on value and ethics and the people that are within it, it's really like telling when people aren't doing it for the right reasons, and sometimes that puts people off. So I think just being like an authentically vegan company in the first place is quite alluring to people that want to like be part of that community. So then it just is like a self-fulfilling prophecy that it then grows from that. And the charity work, like it's always something we've been super passionate about anyway, because if we're in a privileged position of having some kind of platform and being able to like profit off something that we love doing, well, surely if our values are based around that, then we should be able to raise money and give money and part of our profits to, you know, causes that we passionately believe in anyway. So we did the Dean Farm Trust Bar, which was cool. And we just like, it's fun. We just got to put like animals on a bar. Gave the profits to Dean Farm, and then they actually invited us down. So we went for our honeymoon. We went to go see them in Wales. We got to hang out with like all their residents for the day. And that was super cool. And then we've just partnered with One Kind, which is a charity based up in Scotland. And they're running a campaign at the minute around fox hunting. So they just sent us a load of leaflets and badges and things, and we're doing a raffle with them. So it's really nice to be able to like, they have an older like clientele, so they don't have a bigger following on social media, but they've got a really big email campaign list. So we can like use one another's like social media strengths to kind of grow awareness around it.
I don't think I've seen a company like Trupig's Instagram account where it is very open, honest. It's almost like you'd see like a personal account kind of thing. And I think that's really nice to see. Like you said, like it's two people making chocolates, and I think that really shows in the account. It feels very authentic and stuff. But yeah, what inspires you for your new products then? And obviously with the meat-free and dairy-free products, has there ever been any difficulties or obstacles from idea to creation in order to create a tasty kind of chocolate?
I mean, it's cool because I don't have any experience. I'm completely self-taught with chocolate, so I don't have anything to base it on. So I wouldn't know that working with vegan and dairy chocolate works this way. So you have to treat it in a different way. I've only had to like trial and error with tempering. So I used to hand temper everything. And now we have a couple of smaller machines. I've just started using Silk a lot which is tempered cocoa butter, which works really nicely. I will say, like, vegan milk chocolate definitely works like dark chocolate. So I would always temper it at 31.4 rather than around the 30s or 29s like you would milk chocolate, just because it's got a higher cocoa content. It needs to have that fluidity, and it's only going to get that above 31. But that's just something, like, when I first started tempering, there wasn't that information around about vegan chocolate because no one had really done it, or if they had, they weren't really sharing that information. Or the chocolate itself that was available, the couverture wasn't great stuff. Like you said before, now we've got like Moo Free, Casaluca, Calabout, the NXT. Like there was none of that about, like, when we started, I was making raw chocolate because you couldn't get couverture. So I was like, yeah, this is great. And people were like, it's tasty, but it's not dairy milk, is it? And as much as I would maybe still want to do that kind of raw, or even bean to bar that we've looked into, what our like customers and community want, it's not that. They want like Biscoff things and Oreos and milk chocolate, like the stuff that that their friends are eating that you can buy in the supermarkets, not raspberry and rose and like beetroot. I did a beetroot truffle once. No one wants that. I mean, I liked it because it's got that beautiful color around it. Like,
yeah.
So using like natural, I mean, we still use turmeric to color our yolks in the cream egg bars, so there's still little nods to being a little like old school vegan, but ultimately, like you've got to use your Biscoff and like brands and stuff like that.
Do you reckon you'll ever do like a limited run of kind of flavors that you want to try with the old school ones and stuff?
Yeah, maybe. We've always thought about doing some kind of like vaults collection, so using like way more high-end single origin stuff, the things that I'm like really passionate about, and a bit more like weird and unique flavors alongside a sort of, a bit, don't want to say basic because it's what I like as well.
Yeah. Kind of part of the appeal, especially from like a surface level interest, is like if you miss as a vegan like Oreos and like Kinder Bueno and stuff, then having that alternative that's I actually think more tasty. Then like that's the kind of draw, at least on the surface. So I think that's what people look for, isn't it? Veganism, vegetarianism, dairy free, plant based. They've all like increased in popularity over recent years. Why do you think this is, and do you think it will continue to rise in popularity?
I mean, I think it's two things. You've got veganism, and then you've almost got plant-based, which is almost like this second wave. The plant-based bit is definitely that's coming from a place of privilege, right? And the veganism is something that's grown from a more ethical standpoint. I do think it's kind of almost reached its peak in a way because it's cool and it's not going to stay cool forever. So I think it's maybe kind of reached a bit of a peak, but it's still going to continue to grow as people realize and uncover more environmental reasons in terms of like farming and agriculture. Like a lot of the, most of the vegetables grown in the UK are actually for animal feed. So if we've got a problem with growing vegetables for us and we can't access the single market and get vegetables from, say, Spain and things anymore, then we can grow them here, but they're being used to feed animals and for animal feed. Sorry, I'm going on a big tangent then because I'm super passionate about it. But I think, I would encourage people to definitely like experiment with like plant-based and vegan options. I would just say it's how you go about it, especially from a ethical standpoint. Like I said, it's really obvious in the vegan market if you just come across really inauthentic and just start offering or switch up your whole brand. There's a lot of companies that I've seen actually they've become vegan just because of Brexit and being able to import and export, and the way the legislation now works for animal products, is actually cheaper to use vegan ingredients. They're more accessible. They don't have to go through the same stringent processes that, say, dairy ingredients have to be able to get into the country now. So there's that aspect of it as well. If they're cheaper and easily accessible, then great. That's a means to grow veganism as well. But I would say those kind of companies advertise it more as a plant-based product. When you say vegan, I think you've then got more of an ethical obligation to put your money where your mouth is. And if you're cashing in on the vegan pound, I think it's really important that you show that you're then putting back into it. You know, you're not just lining a fat cat's pocket that's got absolutely no interest in veganism or ethical welfare of animals, even by donating a portion to profits or just doing doing the work. I think it's a little, otherwise it can come across a bit inauthentic, really. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely interesting. You can definitely tell when a brand is jumping on the bandwagon kind of thing. And I think if you are passionate about this kind of stuff like veganism and stuff, then you will sniff that out relatively easy.
Yeah.
I think, especially if it's a company that you've seen for a while that's all of a sudden, like you said, switching it up, clearly not part of that community and culture, then it's
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll still buy it and I'll still, it's a difficult, I feel really conflicted by it because obviously I want veganism to grow and I want more people to like be on board with it. But I also really can't stand when you just see brands that have they've got no interest or compassion in that regard. They're just trying to cash in a bit on that vegan pound, but I almost want them to, but yeah.
I think it's one of those, isn't it? It's just like the means to the end. Like while the means isn't the best thing, the end is that veganism kind of spreads and stuff like that. So yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
What is your favorite vegan chocolate to work with and why?
Do you know what I'm really liking at the minute? The Casaluca, you just started stocking the 20 kilo bags of the Casaluca oat milk, and it's so nice. And it's unlike a lot of the milk chocolates because it's proper, it's fruity, it's got depth, it's got a lot of layers of flavor. It works really nicely. Pairing it with different like pralines, it works really nicely with like the fondants. You know, a lot of the ingredients that you guys supply are vegan anyway. Like a lot of the pralines, nut butters, fondants, purees, they're all vegan. So if you compare them with like the Moo Free Organic as well is good, and the Casaluca. I mean, I'll always have deep in my heart the fair trade Cowbell 811 because that was, since we started, and I was like, hang on, this is vegan. It's 55% dark chocolate, and I always tell people it's as close as you can get to milk chocolate without having milk. It's a dark chocolate, but it's super light.
So, have you always worked with vegan chocolate then?
Yeah. I've literally never tempered a non-vegan thing in my life because that's how we started. And like I said, I experimented with raw chocolate, trying to make my own, and realizing quite quickly that there were better products available, people that had already done the work and that were more skilled at making the couverture, and that it was easier to work with. It wasn't really my skill set. We looked at nib to bar, bean to bar, which I've seen people do, but to set that up, it's a huge output. Like you need to have money, an investment in machinery, and we just didn't have that. We didn't start the business with any money. You know, we made 100 quid at the first stall, and then that went straight back into buying like some more spatulas and a bowl. So the way we did it was from buying couverture and learning how to temper that. And for a small time business like we are, really, the investment in massive machinery is just not sustainable for us. Like, this is what we want to do, even if it's just on the side, even if we can't do this forever, but it's still like our, passion project or whatever, and we do other things. We still want to be able to keep this going, and we want to maybe like start a family in the next couple of years. We're both super, we have a lot of interests outside this, which is, I think, what makes it work a lot of the time, because I can be quite intense on if I'm really into it, that's what I'm obsessed with it. But because I have, roller derby and I compete in strength sports, gigging, all that kind of stuff, it means that we can definitely take time away from here.
So what would you say to chocolatiers considering giving vegan chocolate like Moo Free and NXT and stuff like that a go, or even just to play about with it? What have you got any kind of advice?
Yeah, I mean, the milk chocolate, try it, but just work with it like it's a dark chocolate. So temper it to 31.4. It needs to be that level of fluid because of the higher cocoa content. So like a vegan milk chocolate might be up to 40% cocoa. So it's going to need to be tempered at a higher temperature to work with. Otherwise, it can seize a little bit. But other than that, it works exactly the same. We temper with silk, so that brings that down the fluidity a little bit as well. But it's no different, and especially when you're pairing it with inclusions and different flavors, it's the shell and the milk chocolate is more just a carrier for that, isn't it? So if you're just using it as a, as an outer shell or like a decoration or a top, you're not even going to be able to tell. If you're doing it as like a solid bar, then you can add, different like flavor drops potentially. It works really nice with like fruity flavor drops. Using things like coconut milk to make your ganaches is really good. It's like just using the cream, the fat on top rather than the water. So like a really high percentage coconut milk works great. You can get like oat cream is a great one, soya cream, literally anything. It works the same. The ratios for ganache, we'll just use like a 2-to-1 ratio, similar as you would. We still use glucose to, for the shelf life. So other than that, it works the same. If anything, you're going to have a longer shelf life by not using dairy and creams. Because nothing's like, it's not a pasteurized product. It's not got tends to be longer shelf life as well. So it's probably going to be easier to work with.
I think that's quite helpful. You did quite a comprehensive covering a vegan chocolate then.
This is I'm nerdy on I've got just behind me, I have many books on chocolate and science, and we've spent a lot of time perfecting our shelf life without using preservatives. Because that's a big thing for us, is obviously stuff that's fresh and handmade has a shorter shelf life, so you can't compete with the other products, but you can manipulate water and air temperature control, and that's how you lengthen the shelf life without using a preservative. So yeah, I'm proper nerdy about
that. So what's, obviously you talked about that you don't know how long this is going to go on for. If it goes, it does. But how do you see the future of Trupig? What do you think is in the future for you?
We just literally, like, we when we changed our name, it was that keep on truffling mantra is literally just it. We just keep on truffling, like, because it is just the two of us. We're really lucky that we work week to week. It's very much as if we don't have a shop front, but we liken it to having a shop, that kind of thing. So if I fancy making a certain thing one week, that's what we put up online. So yeah, we'll carry on doing it for as long as we can. And I think because we're smaller, we're able to adapt and grow with demand. So when we first started making the bars, like the vegan version of a Bueno, like the Truno, there was no other available product like that. And then obviously companies started bringing them out. We could have carried on making them and pushing it, but we were like, oh, let's try and make some other things. So now we do the hand-painted bonbons, really popular. We delved into fudge, So depending what the market is dictating and what people want and what's in, we can pretty much get that out really quickly. I can experiment with it, I can make it, and then we can get it, on the website, we can get it to market, kind of thing. So just constantly adapting, trying to keep, I guess, work more with our branding. We were really lucky to have some funding from the Sheffield University to work with the rebrand, because that was a whole trademark lengthy battle. We didn't have to change the name, but we felt like we didn't want to have to go through it. So we thought, do you know what, let's just, before it gets silly, let's just change it, because we'd end up spending time, money, stress, heartache, and maybe not being as in love with it as we were. So we just thought, do you know what, we don't want to play with the big boys. We're just going to call it there and move on with our lives. And we did, and it was fine, and no one cared.
Yeah, Trupig's got a nice ring to it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems to be doing all right. And like the work we did with the Design Futures for the rebrand was totally invaluable, because it was money on design and rebrand that we didn't have. We couldn't have afforded to do it at that level. So they really helped us with that. I even went in and had like a lesson on how to use like Illustrator and stuff. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Have you got any kind of message that you want to tell people about Trupig, or just anything in particular?
I guess not really. Just like, we love having that community around us on social media. So, we're always about on Trupig Vegan, on Instagram. I haven't quite fallen in love with TikTok, to be honest. It's not my place. I think there's a lot to be done in terms of sales on TikTok, but in terms of the community you can build on Instagram, it's just been like, I literally consider people my friends. Like I chat to people all day on Messenger. Like I know people's life stories, and I think that's part of what's been so successful, in that if there's ever like a problem with an order, we'll chat it out and we'll figure it out, and we'll always sort it. We're never going to be like put the blame on the customer. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's that level of like care, and I guess it's authenticity as well. Like they can see that it's us replying to the messages at 2 a.m, and like, but it's because we care so much, and like I want how I send it out, I want them to receive it like that because we've put so much care and effort into it. So I think being like having that level of like care over your products, and being like your true self on, they're gonna laugh at me that I just said that, on social media and stuff is probably the best thing that you can do for a business. But I think it depends how you start. If you start your business from scratch and it's just you, like that's who you are online. Whereas if you start your business with, different goals and aspirations, that changes the dynamic of how you interact online. Trupig is us. That's why we'll always, we'll talk about politics. We'll talk about things we care about, things that make us mad, because that's who we are. So if someone says, we got a lot of hate for having a different political view and whatever, that's fine. You don't have to buy our chocolate. You don't have to enjoy it. That's okay. Because we're not doing it to make loads of sales. We're doing it because we love it and it's fun, and we're super privileged and lucky to be able to make a living from it. We're fortunate enough to be able to almost say, like, these are our values. If you don't agree, you can move along.
I think it's also good with Instagram as well that you kind of get that. I imagine get that instant feedback. So you could say 1 week, we're thinking of making these chocolates or these chocolates. Which one do you guys want to see? So really valuable tool. But yeah, that's all my questions. Unless there's anything else you want to add or go over.
No, great. Yeah, we did.
So that was our interview with Lily from Trupig. Big thank you to Trupig for being involved with this. If you like this kind of content, please do let us know. And if there's anyone you'd like to hear from, please also drop them in the comments below. Thank you.